So just to start, I'm here with Cyril Derreumaux. He's in California today. I'm in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. We just got to talking about Cyril's boat. He calls Valentine, is it, if I enunciate?
Yeah, per my sister. Yep.
For your sister. Okay, that's wonderful. And you were just mentioning that you're getting ready to do your first overnights to sleep in it and get used to the confinement. Now, what are you expecting to find out tonight in your first night in the boat?
Oh, well, it's all about getting to know her. So, I go step by step. In 8 months, I might be in the middle of a storm, and there's some fears, obviously, where how am I going to be like if I have to stay 4 days stuck into that little coffin-like cabin, right? So,
Absolutely.
and I have a mental coach that is really saying you have to find whatever your fears or what you think you will be into. You have to walk through different steps to get there, right? If you put me now in the storm, I'll freak out, right? But
Absolutely.
so I had the boat last week on the water, and I already spent 2-3 hours. I was working on my computer. Next step is tonight. I'll go in there. I lock the cabin, the cabin door, the hatch, sleep in it the whole night, and then the next step will be to do that for 2 or 3 days and work out, get in and out of the cabin, go paddle 2-3 hours, stop, come back, eat. Can I use the stove or not? And the next step will be to go maybe outside the Golden Gate, right where there's the waves and wind, or it'll be bigger, but not too big. And then I'll do that for maybe go around Farallon Islands, which are some islands that are 27 miles off San Francisco.
Okay.
Go around and come back and see the sea anchor and different systems. And as I get to, months by months, I'll increment my experience, my confidence in myself within the boat and how to get in, and all the little details.
Absolutely.
So,
Now, while you're actually out there paddling, how do you determine how many hours a day do you paddle? When you take your breaks, how do you determine or how do you schedule those times for yourself while you're out there?
so right now it's very much theory. I've asked people that have rowed and kayaked across oceans before, and they say, what is your experience? What is the best? Now, on a rowing boat, if you're on a team, which I did 4 years ago to cross from California to Hawaii, you
Yes.
go 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, all day, all night, right? So you never sleep more than 45 minutes, which means changing your sleep pattern, which means, eating at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So now most people that do solo crossing, they tell me that you want to have a full night's sleep. There's no reason to paddle during the night because that increases the risk factor
Okay.
of falling in the water or whatever. You don't see well, just basically, you don't see the waves coming, you don't see the wind pattern, you don't see, and you just get super tired. So it's good to have a night's sleep. Now,
Okay.
so sun rises, you wake up, little breakfast, you paddle for, let's say, from 8 to noon. You could take a break for an hour, stretch your legs, change a little bit clothes maybe, take one off, one put back on, and then go back to paddling maybe from, let's say, 2 to 6 or 2 to 8. If the conditions are really good, then you want to keep paddling, because if it's
Absolutely.
helping you, you could get a little more swell and go faster, then it's better to go. But in the other end, if you're feeling like crap because you didn't sleep, you don't feel like you're seasick, and well, it take 2 hours at 4 o'clock, you go back in the cabin and rest. It's okay.
Yes. Absolutely.
And
So,
during the
so it's a
night,
little bit more laid back for you this time than the 2 hours on, 2 hours off. That was your world record setting paddle, was it not? The
yeah, it
paddle
was,
that you
yeah,
did.
39
That's an
days.
incredible feat. 39 days. It was 39 days. How many hours? I think I have it here in front of me here.
Yeah, 8 hours or 10 hours, something like this. Yeah.
It's wow. 39 days, 9 hours, 56 minutes to cross an ocean paddling with a group of friends. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal. Now, I know a lot of people are very interested in your craft, of course. It's self-righting, I'd assume. Okay. Who were the developers? Who were the children behind developing this kayak? Obviously, it has to be something that you're comfortable in. Who did you reach out to when you started developing this craft for this purpose?
So I asked my friend Sean Morley. Sean Morley is a British guy who lives in California for 15, 20 years. And he went around England and Ireland in a sea kayak, all around the inhabited islands for 6 months. It is a very, very good kayaker. And I asked him, do you have any idea who I should? Oh, you should look into Peter Bray. Peter Bray crossed the North Atlantic from Canada to Ireland back in 2001. And his boat was very safe because he never flipped. Oh, never. He always, you could go on the side 45 degrees and back. It was very safe. So I called Peter Bray. I had to chase him on the internet and find a great boat. I recommend it. It was 20 years ago, so maybe you could do some improvements, but you should talk to Robin Filloy. And Rob Filloy is in England, and he was retired. And I guess I must have had a lot of enthusiasm, because when I talked to him, I convinced him to come out of retirement. And he said, I don't have a shop, I don't have a team, I don't have tools. I said, figure it out. We'll make it happen. But I wanted him. I had a really good feeling with the guy, where he's passionate. It would probably not be like the latest technology, but he would use the same design and improve on it upon, discussion and brainstorming together. Or how about we put this here? How about we put more solar panels, less, the water maker, blah, blah, blah. And we talked for hours. And I had a really good personal feeling with this. And then I said, okay, I want to work with him. I'll build the boat in England, custom, and that's it.
That's incredible. And then you had it shipped over, and now it's yours, and you're getting some time in it. It's amazing. I know that I'm waiting on a new boat right now, and I can hardly contain myself every time I think about it. So it's mine's not nearly the high technology boat that yours is, but nonetheless, it's going to be a lot of fun to live out of next year.
Well, for me, safety was number one.
Yes.
I've got 2 kids that are 14 and 12. I love life like crazy. And I'm only 44, so I still have 40 years to live. Yes. And a lot of adventures. So absolutely, safety was number one. I could have gone. There was a boat builder in California. He said, we're going to do a new prototype, like very skinny hull, and we can have a prow, like a Yaku on the side. And you could get, up to 6-7 miles an hour, and you could beat any record. And for some reason, again, I talked to Rob, and I had a feeling, and I said, okay, let's do it the safe way. One day I'll go racing, but this was more about adventure to me. It was more, I'll be alone in the middle of the ocean, and I'm not like the first crossing on the ocean crossing was an amazing experience, but our aim was to beat the record, which was 43 days, and that was tough. That was a discipline, like on a daily basis, like push. So here's a few numbers, just to give you an idea of how, if you want to beat a record, how you have to think. So let's say you switch team, because we were 4 guys. You switch team every 2 hours, okay, or every hour and a half. That means you switch 8 times during the day, the 12 hours of the day, and 8 times during the night. Right? So that's 16 times where you switch the team. If you take 5 minutes between the team, while the team come out of the cabin, I would say, okay, you come, and then you leave your seat, you put the guy on, and it's 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes where the boat is not moving, right? 5 minutes times 8, that's 40 minutes during the day where the boat is not moving. You add that during the 12 hours of the night, that's 80 minutes. That's an hour 20 where the boat is not moving for a period of 24 hours, right? That's an hour and a half, an hour 20. Now, if you compile that to 40 days, that's 40 hours. That's 48 hours where the boat is not moving. 48 hours, that's 2 days. Now, if you want to shave 2 days of those guys who did the record, you cannot allow not even 5 minutes between the change of the crew. That means you say, guys, you got to be ready 5 minutes. 1, 2, 3, boom, change, roll, do not stop. And that's easy to say for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Yes. But after 4 weeks, do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's pouring rain, your ass is cold. I mean, you're from Canada, so you're much tougher than me. But
very true.
It's tough to keep going, And here's another number. I don't know if you want me to go into that, but that's really crucial. Sure. If you do 50 miles on average per day, you calculate times 40 days, you get to Hawaii in 40 days, 50 miles an hour on average. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you do 51 mile, which is only 1 mile per day,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Then that's 1 mile times 40, that's 40 miles, right? So you're shaving a day off in the end, just doing 1 mile. So this 1 mile, you divide by 24 hours. That's going to be what, 100 yards per hour, or not even, it's like 50 yards per hour, further than you would do. So if you go a little bit harder and you do those 50 yards every hour, that means you shave a day in the end. So every time we would push, like, you cannot take a slack. So go back to my point where, like, wow, that was good. I had a crew of amazing rowers, but it was not fun. It was actually hell.
Yes,
So
I could imagine.
yeah, so
I could
for
imagine.
me,
I could imagine.
now this next crossing is all going to be about nature, about like enjoying. If I see a bird in the middle of the ocean, I'm going to look at it like until it goes away. I don't care. I don't care. You know,
fantastic.
I see a fish, I'm going to look at that fish and I'm going to call him a name and baptize this little fish.
Yeah. And that's what I keep saying about my trip. The actual route that I'm planning is around 1,680 kilometers for my next expedition, but I always find myself sidetracked going in to see this river or this creek or this scenery. So I tend to get sidetracked. I think I added on about an extra 60 kilometers to my last trip, just being able to go down creeks and rivers and tributaries. I'm usually on coastlines doing what I'm doing. So next year, it'll be the entire Canadian coastal shore of the Great Lakes. So we have a lot of nature, and that's what it's all about for me, is being out in nature and connecting with nature. So that's definitely something that resonates with me deeply. Now,
I love Canada. You know, it's I've done three times the Yukon River Quest.
Yes.
And that's what kind of put my step on ultra endurance.
Okay.
It's 444 miles, you know, from Whitehorse to Dawson City.
Yes.
And that's where I saw, wow, that's 50 hours of paddling. And, you know, actually I'm pretty good at this. I'm not very strong. I'm not very fast, but I could keep going. And that was a stepping stone for me, the Yukon River Quest, towards then another bigger adventure.
Now, in terms of physical fitness, do you intend to put on extra weight before you hop in your boat and go for the 70-day trip?
Yeah, I lost 15 pounds on the first crossing.
Okay.
And usually people that do, you know, I calculated about 70 to 80 days, and I'll be eating about 6,000 calories a day, but I know we're going to spend about 8,000 a day. Okay. So I have a deficit of 2,000 calories a day. So I will need to put 25 pounds, you know, like 12, 13 kilos beforehand. Yeah. Okay. And now it's funny because I talked to my coach and say, well, you know, I'd like those 25 pounds to be what, 60, 70% of muscle. Yeah. Well, how old are you? I'm 44. Ah, forget it. You're going to have 20% muscle. The rest is going to be fat, my friend. Right. You just can't put on muscle that much at our age, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm almost in my 40s now. I'm 39 years old, so I'm starting to run into a few of those key features.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But now with your boat, you're paddling in one of the videos I saw you practicing in your boat. You mentioned that your boat's going to weigh, including you, approximately 800 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, is that considered? Do you think that's a lot of weight compared to the rowboat that you took across the first time? Like,
yeah, it's pretty light. Our rowboat was about 2,000 pounds for 4 people.
Oh wow! Okay.
And come with the weight. Okay, you're going to be a little bit slower, but it brings a lot of safety because that makes the boat much more stable. Now, I was talking yesterday to Peter Bray, the guy who crossed the North Atlantic in 2001. And he said his boat was 580 kilos. That's 1,200 pounds.
Yes.
And he had a lot of water because his contingency plan, where if his water maker were to break, was to have the supply of water. And all his food was not dry food because he said, what if my water maker breaks? Or I don't have sun, so I can't charge my solar panel, that I can't load my batteries. I can't use my water maker. So all his food was actually not freeze dried, but just cold, you know, airless bag.
Yes.
and that was his choice. For me, I think on the route, it's a different route. There's less fog, less storm. There could be a storm for maybe a week or two, but my battery should be fine. So I think my contingency plan, I have a water maker, and if this one fails, I have another one that is manual. I could make
Okay.
about a liter per hour by pumping.
Oh,
And
wow.
if this one fails, I can turn back to the first one. I have to dismantle it. But if I remove the engine, I could also put a handle and do it manually. So I think with plan A, B, and C of water maker, I should be okay with creating water. So I don't have too much. That brings my boat from 1,200 pounds to 800 pounds.
Okay.
Right. And we'll see. I might have to, add water to some bladders that we'll take. If I feel like I know it's going to be like stormy for a week, I want more ballast, I can add more weight. But the boat has been designed for this, to being pretty heavy.
Yes. Now, with regards to your solar panels, excuse me, how much power do you actually have on that boat with regards to your solar panels?
So the front one is a little bit smaller than the back, so it's about 100 watts. I've got 170 watts in the back on the main cabin. We had planned for another side, but we finally decided to make some calculation, and depending on my daily consumption,
Okay.
I should be fine with those two. So what I'll do is, I'll play around here in the bay for the next 8 months, see how much I consume. If I need to add another one, it's pretty easy to add another solar. But I've got two batteries, and we created a system where basically the solar panels can charge the two batteries. And once I choose which one I take the energy from, right? And then while I drain one, the other one's filling up with the solar panel, and I can switch back and forth from the two. And if the system fails, I think, with two batteries, it's a good contingency plan again
Okay.
to get there.
And
And now,
you said
yeah,
you had dual batteries that are being charged then from the system?
yeah.
That's awesome.
And
It is a phenomenon. It looks like a very futuristic craft for a lot of people, I think, when they look at it. The comparison of putting it beside a tandem kayak, I think, really opened people's eyes to what you're actually doing. I think it put the boat in a real perspective for people to see, like, this is not a huge vessel that he's doing this in. It does have a sleeper built into it, and a cabin for comfort and of course for safety. But overall, it's just an incredible craft to see going out there.
yeah, I mean, the ultimate, the first guy who crossed this mid-Pacific. It's a mid-Pacific, right? It's not the whole
Yeah.
Pacific. The mid-Pacific is Ed Gillette. Ed Gillette is an American guy from California. He left on one of those double kayaks, and it was back in 1987. The guy's a legend. He left from Monterey Bay, and it took him 64 days to get to Maui. But back in 87, he had no sat phone. He didn't have a
Yes.
GPS. He navigated with a sextant. And at night, he had 600 pounds of food and gear, and they put in the front of the kayak. And he would slide down in the cockpit and put a tarp over himself for night. And the guy arrived like, this is phenomenal. And the first guy to do it, you never knew if he could do it, the guy is just a monster. It's a legend. There's never going to be anybody. And I'm a tiny little attempt, to follow his steps
Yes.
with modern. Again, there's a lot of people that try to do like him, like a kayak, a sea kayak. But I read his book, and Ed Gillette said, you know what? Had I done the trip 10 times, I think probably 5 times I would not have made it. And so that's 50% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I've got 2 kids, 14 and 12. I teach them to follow their dreams, but not to, I love life. I don't want to die. And I want to create a vessel that is up to today's standard, and just with an AIS, with an EPIRB and a 2 sat phone. And I'm lucky enough to be able to have that technology, and I'm just going to use it for adventure, for discovery, for exploration. What it is these guys, if you look at them, they're out of this world. I mean, these guys are like pioneers, they're trailblazers, they're a little bit crazy, you know, in terms of personality. And nowadays,
Absolutely.
these adventures are being democratized. We can, like, I'm an athlete in certain ways, but I'm not that same guy. It's like, it's so good that nowadays you could climb the Everest if you want. You could do those things,
Yes.
uh, and I think it's beautiful, and we should do it.
I think that's absolutely the essence of why I'm involved in what I do. It's there to do, and if you have the ability to go and do it, and there's people out there who want to
Yeah.
support you and get behind you, then by all means you should. One of the comments I get when I tell people that I'm out paddling big lakes, and I've seen it on your post, you're nuts.
Yeah,
You get that comment a lot.
we are. Oh, we are a bit nuts for sure. Yeah,
I think that's one of the more funny ones that I get, and it's one that I have a great time with. Is everybody that tells me I'm nuts all the time. I have a lot of fun with that.
yeah. Well, everyone has their own reasons to do them, right? And I have a hard time to try to explain the why. I think fundamentally the human, like, to do things that has no purpose other than feeling the achievement of doing it and
Mhm.
finding oneself, right? It's I think it's very human. Now, my personal reason, I think, here's my theory. I might be wrong, but when us in Europe, you know, we were raised, there was the First World War and the Second World War, and you had to, like my grandpa, he fought in the war, and you become a man. You become, like, you have to raise up to the occasion. You have to find your values when in those really hard. And nowadays we're so lucky, like, I don't have to go to war. And in some ways, there's this there's something missing with us, like, kind of try to prove ourselves. And I
Mhm.
think our next generation is going to be, they're a little bit softies as well, because everything is given to them. Come on, you know, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
There's beauty
Absolutely.
in hardship.
Yeah.
There's beauty in longing for, um, like, toughness. Everything is given too much. It's too easy. It's instant gratification. And I guess us, in some ways, we're finding that old-fashioned beauty in struggling, and then
Absolutely.
pressing your limits, and getting there and having it. Yes.
There is something unique about overcoming a challenge like that's as extraordinary as long distance paddle. That's for certain. I've definitely been hooked on doing long distance paddles now, and I definitely don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So, being able for a guy like me who's just starting out his career in long distance paddling, being able
Oh
to
yeah.
reach out to a guy like yourself absolutely changes the whole ball game for a guy like me. It opens the doors to get the knowledge that I require in order to stretch myself as far as I can go. I know that I learned a lot on this. I paddled Lake Erie this year, which if you talk to people from the Great Lakes, they will kind of refer to. Excuse me, we have a phone going off for a second there. We do refer to Lake Erie as being one of the rougher lakes of the
Yeah.
Great Lakes, and we have steep, short waves. So, like a 1 meter, 1.5 meter wave on Lake Erie is a far different pitch and scenario than a 1 or 1 meter wave, say on Lake Huron or Lake Superior, which is a nice deep lake. Um, it's a great lot of fun, but the nice thing for me is I sleep on land every night. I try to find places to pull up and get out of the water and get my land
Yeah.
legs back a little bit. And if the weather does get too bad, at least I do have some security in being on the shoreline somewhere, and just hope my tent holds up. I had a tornado land about 15K from me on my last trip, and I took a lot of damage to my tent. So, but it
Oh,
held up,
listen,
and
I think listening to you, I think you have what it takes to cross an ocean. So be careful. In a few years, it might come into your little brain from the back right here, and come in the front, and until you say, "I'm doing it."
I'm gonna. Well, I'd like to tell you all about. I mean, I've definitely got 2 expeditions in the work. I definitely want to get through this first one this year, and then definitely I'll start discussing what the next one would be a record setter. So. It's definitely already in the back of my mind. I have the support and the love that I need from my family to kind of make these things happen
Good.
for me now, and obviously you do as well. And it's nice to see companies stepping up and supporting you and your dreams. And I think it's so important that there's some organizations out there that understand the importance of stepping up and helping athletes or explorers. Because I also feel very similarly that I'm far more of an explorer or a Great Lakes explorer than I am specifically an athlete. And I think that's a big part of it for me, is knowing that, you know, athletics is obviously a huge part of it. You have to be fairly fit to be able to do it. But then the psychology of overcoming the adversities that come with doing a challenge like that, and then succeeding at the end through all those things, it's an amazing experience. And I hope to inspire people in the future. I know that you inspire me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
Well, listen, it's my pleasure. That's the beauty of internet. You know, we wouldn't never have known about each other, you know, 20 years ago, or until it's done. And now to be able to speak about it before it's actually happening.
Absolutely.
You know, it's and sharing the stories, sharing the experience. I've talked to, you know, Scott is a guy who crossed the Tasman Sea from Australia to New Zealand, and
that was an amazing
yeah, you see that expedition? He tried like 3 times. The guy is like so strong mentally and so humble. I talked to him for like 3 hours. He told me there's no secrets. He said, I want you to succeed. He gave me all.
And that's what I find amongst kind of the kayaker adventure group, is that there is no animosity, there's no jealousy. There's just support for what that person's doing, and I think that's one of the best parts about the industry, especially the explorers and the kayak adventurers. There's a lot to be said about no jealousy in amongst us as athletes. So I hope that spreads through the rest of the industry someday too, and we keep building these dreams. I see people like yourself, and I kind of hold you up there at the same level as people like Freya Hoffmeister and others. She's definitely a huge idol and inspiration to me as well. So it's nice to have men and women involved in the sport. And I mean, there's men and women that are amazing athletes, that are amazing people, successful in all aspects of life, that are kind of reaching into this and doing it. And so there's a lot of avenues.
What I would say is, you know, I haven't crossed yet, but as you know, sometimes getting to the starting line is the hardest, and that's why I can talk to is that having the drive and the passion to never let go of that dream to doing it. Now, I might be seasick for 2 weeks, I get dehydrated and have to quit, and I would not have crossed the ocean. It's a possibility, but I think there's success already to daring to say, I want to do this. You know, I want to try to do this. You know, there's a social pressure of people that say, you need to get a job. You need to, you know, stop being an adventurer. That was a bastard at time. How are you looking at someone?
My wife's standing here right now listening to what you're saying, and she's totally agreeing with everything you're saying, because it's the whole financial front is definitely obviously a big burden when you start taking on things like this, when you've got a mortgage to pay and you've got bills to pay, and then you're going to be gone for 4 months and you're not working a traditional job. There's definitely those social pressures for sure. That's something we identify with massively.
So, part of our job is actually to pay back and have an influence on other people. Like, I love to speak to kids between 8 to 12, 13, 14. Well, they're so, you could put a seed of you can do it. And they, you know, they come back. Let me tell you the story very quickly. So when I was 25, I did a trip around the world, and I took 1 year. I had like $7,000. I knew how many countries I want to do. Anyway, I went to my little village, and I talked to every class, 6 years old, 7-year-old, all the way to high school to 18 years old. Okay. And every time it was like, show my backpack. Here's a map of the world. I'm going to Cambodia, to Indonesia, and here's my shoes. Here's blah, blah, blah. Listen, so then I moved to the US in California, and 4 years later, some guy knocked on my door, and he was on a bike with his 3 buddies, and we're going around the world in a bike. And he says, Cyril, you planted that seed 4 years ago. And I didn't remember the guy. I was like, what? I spoke to like maybe 200 kids. And this kid was influenced by this little seed I had planted. I didn't even remember him. So you never know who you inspire. And this is like you're driven, and us, we have to like talk to those kids before we go. Like, talk to all the schools. Like, maybe it's only 3 schools. It's going to be 600 people in your area. Go to talk to them. Hey, this is my kayak. It's right there next. and talk to them, please. That's what I ask you to do.
I
And
absolutely
they'll
will.
come back to you in 6, 10 years, and they'll tell you, yeah, listen, thank you so much. You know.
That's fantastic. And that's something I definitely look forward to. I am going to be speaking at the Windsor Essex County Canoe and Kayak Club at their annual event this year, which is kind of a first for me, which is a big deal. In my opinion, it's kind of a step in the right direction for me with that regards. But getting involved with the youth in the community too is something I definitely look forward to doing in the
Yeah,
future. So
it creates a whole new dimension to your adventure. And nowadays, you know, I'll have a tracker, so all the people that I talk to, that they'll follow me on the tracker, they'll follow you on the tracker, and they'll cheer. You know, I always say, if you go to see a horse race on a track, then you see this the race. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, but put $5 on one horse. Then the race is much more interesting. You're cheering for that horse.
yes.
So I say, you know what? Give me $5 for my crossing. And then they're going to be online looking at me every day. And it just makes it so interesting for them, you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I've got my very supportive wife standing next to me now. She's just listening to what you have to say. It's nice that so much of it's resonating with her as well. So,
Yeah.
but Cyril, thank you for your time. I won't take up any more of it for today. I hope that I can reach out to you again in the future.
Please, anytime. And it's good, actually, like in 4 or 5 months, to see where I am, what kind of, you know, outing did I do with Valentine, and what kind of system did I change, and how I'm going to the last 4 months of working on my new plans. I'd be happy to share with you. And then, oh, excuse my French. Let's do it. Like 2 weeks before I go, I'll take the time for you, my friend, and I'll tell you how I feel. That the feeling is the most important. I feel scared. Do I feel like anticipate? I'm very emotional, and I'll try to convey that to you. I'll be happy to if you so want.
I would
And
love
then,
that.
and once I'm getting Hawaii, where I'm blazed with a lot of flowers, I'm having a caipirinha or whatever, I'm gonna be talking to you and having a big beer like this.
I know I sure had a big one at the end of this event. I know that I just shaved my big beard off not too long ago. So
Yeah.
thank you again, Cyril, for your time.
Anytime, my friend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.